My mom actually lives with me and my wife. Me and my wife live with my mom, but it sounds better when you say it the other way around, so I've been using that. No, yeah, I'm the man of the house. Isn't that hilarious? I'm the man of the... Yeah, it's technically, I'm the only man on the property. Like, I would get demoted the second there was a burglar. My wife's like, Dave, I heard a noise downstairs. Yeah, that's probably the new man of the house. He sounds horny. You should freshen up.
Good morning. It's Thursday, Broken News Thursday, May the 30th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and broken news. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now the headlines with Stuart Varney.
Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. The Trump trial is historic. The world is waiting for a verdict. Jurors deliberated for about 4 hours Wednesday afternoon. They asked to rehear the testimony of Michael Cohen and David Packer. They pick up again about a half hour from now. Throughout the jurors' deliberations, Donald Trump must stay in the courthouse. That effectively keeps him off the campaign trail. The president, well, he's got a light schedule. He returns to the White House briefly tomorrow to meet the Kansas City Chiefs. Will Taylor Swift be there? Then he returns to his beach house for the weekend. Let's get to the market. So more selling today, led by Salesforce. They didn't bring in as much money as expected. Worse, they cut their outlook for revenue from subscriptions. The stock's down 16%. And that drop, well, Salesforce is a Dow stock. And that Salesforce, that one stock, is taking 306 points off the Dow. So if it wasn't for Salesforce, the Dow would be dead flat. Futures show it down 307 points. News that a second reading of GDP shows a growth rate of 1.3%. No obvious impact from that. The Dow, as we showed you, down 300 at this point. Interest rates, they're another big concern. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is close now to 4.6%. The 2-year getting ever closer to 5%. You're looking at 494 right now. Bitcoin, $67,000. Have I got that right? Yes, 68 and change. Oil just below $80 a barrel, 78.72. Gas down 1 cent, 3.56 for regular. Diesel, no change, 3.87. Politics. Biden launches a new campaign to shore up support among black voters. The polls show he's dropped 19 points against Trump since 2020 among those black voters. Now he's targeting black audiences, and Tim Scott, a Trump supporter, says he's pandering. With the president's light schedule, the First Lady is out campaigning for him. She says Trump, quote, can't put a sentence together. How about that? On the show today, much more on the Trump trial. What happens if there's an acquittal? What happens if there's a hung jury? What happens if Trump is convicted? The election, by the way, is 159 days away. We'll have also Doug Burgum with us here in New York City. The Wall Street Journal describes him as rich, loyal, and good-looking. So is he Trump's vice president? It is Thursday, May 30th. My time flies. 2024, Varney and Company is about to begin.
Thank you. And now, guns.
Is buying a police trade-in worth it? It absolutely is, but let me tell you why. This is a SIG 226 that I picked up as a police trade-in. And other than having just the tiniest bit of holster wear, it's in perfect working condition. Police officers have to qualify with their duty weapons between once and twice a year, and most of these courses of fire are only 21 rounds, and most agencies trade in their firearms after about 10 years. So let's do the math on that. Let's say a police officer qualifies twice a year, that's 50 rounds over the course of 10 years. That means that most likely this pistol's only ever seen 500 rounds fired through it, which means that it's just gotten through its break-in period. And that definitely shows because the action on this thing, buttery smooth. Not only can you get a pistol that's gotten through its break-in period, but you get the opportunity to afford 2 for the price of 1. And look, even these night sights still work. And the same goes for these Glocks, 2 for the price of 1.
You know, the Luger was a great souvenir for any American paratrooper. But was it a better weapon than the Colt 45 automatic? Well, to test it out, I got 2 heavy targets hanging right over there in the tree. Let's just see how they stack up. First, the Luger. Not too bad. And now the Colt 45. You know, the Luger was good. But if you wanted to put the enemy down with 1 round, 45 caliber Colt, that's the one you needed. Hoorah!
We've all seen a video of Daddy Grand and Mojo slamming a SIG 320 mag into a Glock, holding it there and shooting it reliably.
That's not going to work, the SIG mag. It'll work, promise, watch. You're welcome.
But will the same work for a SIG 226? So here's our SIG 226. Now we're just going to see if 1 round will chamber here. Oh, it does. Will it shoot? Of course it does. We've even got hold open. How does that work? Now we're going to try like 5 rounds and see if it actually cycles reliably. All right, here goes nothing. This is 5 rounds. Let's see if she cycles. It did. It emptied that whole magazine.
So the answer is yeah, a Glock will eat a 226 mag no problem. And this makes me wonder, will just about any double stack 9mm SIG mag work in a Glock 17?
The Glock 19X is dead. If you're currently looking at getting a Glock 19X, I'd like you to consider just a couple things. One being is that the Glock 45 is identical, but better in multiple ways. One, you can get the MOS model, and two, it'll accept standard Glock 17 mags. That's right, a giant reason why I dislike the 19X is it's got that nub, and that damn thing prevents the 19X from being able to take your standard cheap Glock 17 magazines. So basically, to get this thing up to speed, you're going to need to send off your slide to get it milled so you can run a dot, and you're going to need to cut off that little nub. If you already have a 19X and you want to be able to use 17 mags, go ahead and give that thing a slice. You're not going to hurt it. You're not affecting function at all. You're just adding function.
This is a replica of the Smith & Wesson Schofield revolver. This pistol is chambered in .45 Long Colt, but the original guns would have been chambered in .45 Schofield, which is a slightly shorter case. Now, the .45 Schofield could be used in the .45 Long Colt pistol, like the 1873 Peacemaker, which the U.S. military also adopted. But this one's chambered in .45 Long Colt just because .45 Schofield isn't one of those modern cartridges that's loaded these days. Now, the gun is really cool because it breaks open and can be loaded from the top, which makes it much faster than the 1873 Colts, because those had to be loaded one cartridge at a time through the side gate, which could be a little bit cumbersome, especially in a gunfight. The Schofield didn't have that problem. Very cool pistol. When you're done, kicks out the empties.
And that was Guns. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Patriotic Shorts.
On November 10th, 2004, Sergeant David Belavia was leading a squad during Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. While cleaning a house, his platoon was trapped inside a room under intense enemy fire from a fortified position on the second floor. Despite the gunfire, the sergeant provided covering fire against the enemy position, allowing his squad to exit the house. It was then that the sergeant entered the house again and realized that an enemy was about to fire an RPG at his squad. Realizing the danger, he attacked, killing one enemy. He entered a dark room, and an enemy came down the stairs shooting at him. In the exchange of fire, he eliminated two more enemies and was almost killed by another enemy who was hiding inside a closet, but managed to kill him. The sergeant pursued a fifth enemy who tried to escape through the roof, and who, after being wounded, fell from the second floor. That day, he saved his squadron by eliminating 4 enemies and mortally wounding one of them. He received the Medal of Honor on June 25th, 2019.
In a 9.5-month period, with 3 flyable aircraft, we had an aircraft shot up by enemy about every 4 or 5 days. 117% of our aircraft were shot up every month. In that 40-man detachment, there were 26 Purple Hearts. That means 26 people were wounded out of the 40-man detachment. In that 9.5-month period, despite all those adversities, we carried over 21,000 patients. That was more than were carried by helicopter in the entire Korean War, and as just one unit. All the other dust-off units were doing the same thing. Thousands and thousands of patients, saving thousands and thousands of lives.
They didn't have a good training program. They had thought that the Luftwaffe would, a force in being, would help conquer Europe, and they wouldn't need a training program. And what they had was kind of a feeble one. And that was under a lot of pressure because they were, by this time, we got airplanes over Germany. And where are you going to train? You want to be in a safe place to train.
How are American soldiers different than Russian soldiers? The differences between American and Russian soldiers extend beyond the obvious technological disparities. While the U.S. military benefits from a nearly unlimited budget, which translates into superior technology, there are deeper, more fundamental differences in how these two militaries operate. A key distinction is the robust non-commissioned officer corps in the U.S. military, which ensures discipline, effective operations, and resilient leadership at the lowest level, a tradition rooted in the Revolutionary War. The Russian military is more officer-driven, with soldiers often lacking direction when left on their own. When things break down in combat and an officer is killed in a Russian unit, that unit often becomes ineffective and leaderless. However, in the U.S. military, the loss of an officer does not lead to chaos. The highest-ranking enlisted NCO, who has in practice been in charge all along, officially takes over, and the gloves drop.
Virginia-class subs can handle various tasks, from hunting enemy submarines and ships to gathering intelligence and supporting special operations forces. These submarines are packed with the latest in stealth, weapon systems, and communication technology, making them highly effective. Unlike some previous subs, the Virginia-class is built for operating in shallow coastal waters. The Virginia-class is built in blocks, with each new iteration incorporating improvements and new technologies to stay ahead of potential threats. The Virginia-class submarines are optimized for maximum technological and operational flexibility. These submarines are scheduled to replace older Los Angeles-class submarines. The Virginia-class submarines will be acquired through 2043, and they are expected to remain in service until at least 2060, with later submarines anticipated to operate into the 2070s.
There are some good reasons to eject from a fighter jet, but this ejection has to be the dumbest in history. A 64-year-old French businessman had never expressed any desire to fly in a fighter jet, but he was gifted a fighter jet flight. It was a gift from colleagues, and the man felt he couldn't refuse. The pilot and the passenger got into a two-seater Dassault Rafale B. They took off. First, they experienced 3.7 G-force during the first few seconds. Then the plane reached 1,300 feet, and everyone inside experienced -1 G. The force of the takeoff made him float off his seat. Loose seat straps allowed him to float up. To steady himself, he involuntarily grabbed the ejection handle that was conveniently placed between his legs. The businessman ejected himself about 10 seconds into his flight while flying at over 300 miles per hour. His parachute deployed, and he had a relatively soft landing in a nearby field. Fortunately, a malfunction prevented the pilot from being automatically ejected too, and he was able to land the plane on the runway despite the departure of his passenger and the loss of the cockpit canopy.
And that was the shorts. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of motivation.
Do you feel the warmth of your cozy routine wrapping around you like a comforting embrace? Beware, for in its embrace lies the death knell of ambition. Dreams are not nurtured in the cradle of comfort. They are forged in the crucible of discomfort. Every great achievement in history was born from the fires of adversity, from the relentless pursuit of something beyond the confines of comfort. Look around you at the embers of shattered dreams left in the wake of those who chose the path of least resistance. The road to greatness is fraught with hardship, trials, and tribulations. It demands sacrifice, resilience, and unwavering determination. Comfort is the enemy lurking in the shadows, waiting to extinguish the flames of your potential. So, I implore you, rise from the soft embrace of comfort. Embrace the discomfort, the uncertainty, the fear, for it is in those moments of struggle that your true strength is revealed. Do not let the allure of comfort lull you into a false sense of security. Let the words "comfort kills dreams" be etched into your soul as a reminder of the price of complacency. Let it fuel the fire within you to strive for greatness, to pursue your dreams with relentless fervor. Remember, it is not the comfortable who shape the world, but the courageous who dare to defy the status quo. So step boldly into the unknown, for therein lies the crucible where dreams are forged and greatness is achieved. Shatter the shackles of mediocrity and dare to defy the gravitational pull of comfort. Embrace the discomfort of uncertainty, for it is the breeding ground of innovation and growth. In the darkness of discomfort, you will discover the light of your potential shining, brighter than ever before. Embrace the challenges that come your way, for they are the stepping stones on the path to your greatness. Do not fear failure, for it is but a temporary setback on the journey to success. Each stumble is a lesson learned, each setback a chance to rise stronger and wiser than before. So let the echoes of comfort kills dreams serve as a rallying cry, a battle hymn for those who refuse to be confined by the limitations of comfort. Let it be the anthem of your defiance against the status quo, for it is only when we dare to step out of our comfort zones that we truly come alive. So, go forth, fearless and unyielding, and seize the greatness that awaits you beyond the confines of comfort. Your dreams are calling, and it is time to answer with unwavering resolve. Growth resides in discomfort. It is in the moments of unease, uncertainty, and challenge that we find the fertile soil for personal evolution. Consider the caterpillar, snug within its cocoon. It is only through the struggle of breaking free from its comfortable confinement that it emerges transformed, reborn as a majestic butterfly. So too must we embrace discomfort as the catalyst for our own metamorphosis. Picture yourself standing on the precipice of your comfort zone, peering into the vast expanse of the unknown. It is a daunting sight, filled with risks and uncertainties, yet it is also brimming with infinite possibilities, waiting to be seized by those brave enough to venture forth. It is when we dare to step beyond the familiar shores of our comfort zone that we unlock hidden reservoirs of potential within ourselves. We discover strengths we never knew we possessed, skills we never knew we could master, and dreams we never dared to pursue. Every stumble, every setback, every moment of discomfort is a signpost on the journey of personal growth. It is nature's way of nudging us out of our complacency and propelling us towards our fullest potential. So I urge you, do not shrink from discomfort, but embrace it with open arms. Embrace the uncertainty of the unknown, for it is the crucible in which your character is forged. Embrace the challenges that come your way, for they are the stepping stones on the path to greatness. In the words of Neil Donald Walsh, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So step boldly into the discomfort, for it is there that you will find the true essence of who you are and who you are meant to become. Feel the exhilaration of pushing past your limits, of stretching yourself beyond what you once thought possible. Embrace the discomfort of growth, for it is a sign that you are expanding, evolving, becoming more than you were yesterday. Do not let fear hold you back from the grand adventure that awaits beyond your comfort zone. Instead, let courage be your compass, guiding you through the uncharted territories of your potential. And as you journey through the realms of discomfort, remember that you are not alone. There are countless souls traversing similar paths, facing similar fears, and overcoming similar obstacles. Draw strength from their stories, their triumphs, and their resilience. For in the shared struggle lies the seed of camaraderie, the bond that unites us all in our quest for growth and self-discovery. Together, we can weather the storms of discomfort and emerge stronger, wiser, and more alive than ever before. So embrace the discomfort. Embrace the journey of growth, for it is a journey that will lead you to the very essence of your being.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Daily Dad for May the 30th.
May 30th. You make debts your children must pay. Nobody wrote more beautifully about the history of conquest and adventure than Theodore Roosevelt. Nobody wrote more poetically about war and glory and empire than Rudyard Kipling. In the end, though, these things left them grieving the sons they had loved so much. Roosevelt lost his son Quentin, shot down over France. Kipling lost his son Jack in the trenches in 1915, so destroyed by shot and shell that they never identified the body. Roosevelt was broken by the loss of his eldest boy and followed him soon to the grave. Kipling, who had written If to his son when he was just 12 years old, would write one of his last poems in grief. Have you news of my boy Jack? Not this tide. When do you think that he'll come back? Not with this wind blowing and this tide. These were tragic, devastating events that no parent should ever have to experience, but it's also indisputable that these two great men were not blameless in their occurrence. Not only because the pressure and impossible expectations they put on their children, but because they were part of a generation that had encouraged and celebrated and glibly supported policies that led to the carnage that claimed their sons. And it's a cautionary tale for all parents. Our generation, just like all past generations, makes decisions in the present that have consequences borne primarily by future generations. Our children and grandchildren will live in the world created by your choices, and you yourself may live long enough for that to break your heart.
And that was Ryan Holiday's The Daily Dad, 366 meditations on parenting, love, and raising great kids. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Bishop Barron.
We all have good days and bad days. We all have struggles. We all have deep disappointments. We all experience injustice. How can I take that injustice or that suffering or that lack of fairness and cooperate with it for God's purposes? Whatever suffering we're asked to endure. But again, don't just I'm just passively enduring it. No. I got my antennae out, my spiritual antennae. I'm looking for what is God up to? What does he want? What's he inviting me to? What greater faith, hope, and love is he inviting me to exhibit? What apostolic opportunity is there? I'm being given an opportunity to participate in the sufferings of Christ, to join those sufferings to his, for the salvation of the world.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, the only principle of a mixed economy, which necessarily has to remain unnamed and unacknowledged, is that no one's interests are safe. Everyone's interests are on a public auction block, and anything goes for anyone who can get away with it. Unquote. Now, it's the Ayn Rand thought of the day, and basically what she's describing is pragmatism. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the 33 strategies of war.
From Aesop's Fables. The Lion and the Wild Ass. A lion and a wild ass entered into an agreement to hunt wild beasts together. The lion was to use his great strength, while the ass would make use of his greater speed. When they had taken a certain number of animals, the lion divided up the spoils into 3 portions. I'll take the first share because I am the king, he said. The second share will be mine because I have been your partner in the chase, he said. As for the third share, he said to the wild ass, this share will be a great source of harm to you, believe me, if you do not yield it up to me. And by the way, get lost. It is suitable always to calculate your own strength and not to enter into an alliance with people stronger than yourself.
And that was the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Stuart Varney's My Take.
It's been a very light week for the president. Yes, I know it's just Thursday morning and the week's not over, but for the president, it's almost done. He got a late start after Monday's Memorial Day holiday. Wednesday, he traveled to Philadelphia, made a speech, and spent last night in Delaware. Now, Biden went to church this morning and visited the cemetery where his son Beau is buried. Today is the anniversary of his death. He'll go back to the White House briefly tomorrow to meet the Kansas City Chiefs and maybe Taylor Swift. And then it's back to his beach house for the weekend. Look, I find this surprising. He's got Donald Trump bottled up in the New York courtroom, but he doesn't take advantage of his opponent's absence. Why is he not out there barnstorming the country? He's behind in the polls with only a few months to go to the election, yet he spends so much time at the beach. I guess he needs as much rest as he can get. He sends the First Lady out to criticize Donald Trump. Watch this.
I think the American people deserve a debate because you need to see your choices. You need to see Trump and you need to see the president. And my husband's, and you're going to see how smart he is and the experience he has. And then you'll see somebody who, like you're saying, I'm going to use Joy's words, can't put a sentence together. I believe that Americans are going to choose good over evil.
I can understand the First Lady defending her husband, but saying Trump can't put a sentence together is for me a bridge too far. Because it brings up the contrast. Trump is a bundle of energy, Biden is not. He needs his rest. Now, the media is beginning to catch on. Biden was asked if he plans to move aside. The president did not like that and suggested the reporter asking the question had a head injury. This won't go away. The lighter the schedule, the more rest he needs. And the more the question will be asked, can he be president for another 4.5 years? Who's going to answer that honestly? Second hour of Varney just getting started.
So again, Stuart Varney should have gone ahead and said whether or not he should be president and whether or not he hopes that he is president for another 4 years, instead of pretending to be neutral, because we know he's not. There is no such thing as neutrality. Nobody's neutral. President Biden does not deserve to be nominated by his party for another term as president, and he does not deserve to be elected for a second term. Putting aside all the corruption, all the lies, he is ill. He is sick. He needs to resign from office, suspend his reelection campaign, go home and get better. Go home, get with the doctors, do whatever it is that's necessary to regain his health. Then he can come back and run for re-election if he cares to. Donald Trump, on the other hand, deserves to be president. He has the experience, and he's healthy, much healthier than President Biden, and because he makes promises and keeps those promises, whereas President Biden fails to do that. So again, Donald Trump deserves to be president. President Biden does not. Back in a minute. Thank you. If you're a Democrat, a right-thinking Democrat, you need to vote Republican and become a Republican. We are the true party of government. We are the ones that love government. The Democrat Party just loves power. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, something a little bit, special. Bob Proctor. I'm going to be interrupting this as we go along. So, I'm going to let it go for the 52 seconds, and we'll go from there.
I found most people don't know who they are. They really don't.
I know my name, I know my age, I know where I live.
Yeah, that's not you, though. If you ask the average person who they are, they'll give you their name. They'll say, I'm Bob Proctor, but I'm not. Bob and Proctor are two words. My parents give them to me. They're called names, but it's not me. It's my name. Then somebody will say, well, this is me, but this isn't me either. It's my body. Like, you never phone down here to the studio and say, body won't be in today, it's sick. Okay. You know, we don't say am hand or am leg. It's my hand, my leg, my body, my name. Who am I? See, I think we live simultaneously on three planes of understanding. We're spiritual creatures. We have an intellect and we live in physical bodies. But because we lack awareness or understanding of who we are, we're totally locked into a physical world. And we let things outside of us control us. 95% of the population are reacting to life. They're not.
So again, this is the essence of gaslighting. I don't know who Bob Proctor is, and I don't care. This is the essence, though, of gaslighting. He is trying to make you think that you're crazy. Why? Because he then has the antidote. He has then the solution to this. And it's a trick, because it sounds good. It all sounds good. It's a fallacy, and a fallacy is something that sounds good at first blush, but when you think about it, you realize is crap. And that's what's going on here. It sounds good. Oh, that's not who you are. See, what he's doing is flipping the burden of proof. He comes out and makes an arbitrary allegation. Nobody really knows who they are. But he doesn't prove it, does he? No, he doesn't. See, he wants you to prove the negative. Prove that he's wrong. And that can't be done. Okay, so the more you try to prove, and all he has to do is refuse to accept it, like he did there. Well, I am Joe Jones. And he says, no, you're not. That's just your name. Well, I'm this body. Well, no, that's not you either. See, he can keep you going forever on that. The presumption is made for the status quo. I know who I am because I act like I know who I am. The rest is up to him. The burden of proof is on him, on Mr. Proctor. He's the one that has to prove that I don't know who I am. And this is important because if you allow him to trick you, then he's going to start filling your mind with garbage. Okay? And make you even more confused, more vulnerable, and more reaching out looking for leadership like his and leaders like him. This is all about self-aggrandizement for Mr. Proctor. It's abusive, and it must stop. And the way to stop it is to be aware when somebody's pulling this con, because that's what it is. It's an effing con. Don't allow. A lot of times I'll tell people, consider this, consider that. This is one of the few times when I'm going to say absolutely no consideration. You must reject this all day, every day, because this is an attack on sanity. It's an attack on reality. Back in a minute. Thank you. So I just had a caller that wanted to spike the football, a comrade, one of the commies, and that listened to my podcast, and they said, called me up and said, Trump got convicted. And I said, no, he didn't. And it was silence, stone silence. And they said, well, yes, he did. I said, no, he didn't. And then they said, well, I just saw it on CNN. I said, CNN is a lying organization. They'll lie about Donald Trump because they hate his guts. More silence. And then I said, maybe we'll talk about this again some other time. Have a nice day, and ended the call. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. And I'm telling you this because this is a tactic you can use at work. Right now, the verdict that supposedly came in, we have to take people's word for it. Now, the other thing that you can do is X, formerly Twitter, has got some good stuff on it. Let's see. From the GOP, this was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And that was a quote from Donald Trump. So you can do that too. You can say the real trial is going to be November 5th. Also, according to the account by Leo Terrell, the Trump campaign gets immediate avalanche of cash after guilty verdict. Donation site crashes. That's another one that you can use. You go to work tomorrow and you're going to have to deal with all the communists, then that's another good one that you can use. The Babylon Bee had a good one where they say that the 12 jurors voted to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States. See, that's another approach. A way to approach this is to say there was no guilty verdict. All they did was make sure that Donald Trump wins the election on November 5th. So you can handle it that way. So any one of those options, think about it. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, broken news. Why the media rage machine divides America and how to fight back by Chris Steyerwalt. And this is going to be Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Out of Ideas. How the news lost a race to the bottom with itself. It is not necessary to conceal anything from a public insensible to contradiction and narcotized by technological diversions. Neil Postman, Amusing Ourselves to Death, 1987. Real literacy is not the ability to read and write. Literacy is code breaking. All of us readers are deciphering, looking at abstract symbols on a screen or a page that can put a thought, an image, an idea, a feeling, even a smell right into our heads. Pop. Doing that requires more than just understanding what different combinations of letters mean phonetically. You need context, culture, history, science, and philosophy to really be literate, because the code that is embedded into American English or any language is far more than the squiggles and sounds it represents. If you read Robert Frost describe easy wind and downy flake in a snowy wood that is lovely, dark, and deep, and you know about New England and farm life, you are not only taken to that place and those sensations, but to an idea about what obligations are like. But I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. You hear the little wind puffing through the bare branches. You see the big snowflakes melting on the sleeve of your coat. You smell the horse stander. You think about how the tension between pleasure and duty can be satisfying. If you don't know the context, though, then who cares about some creepy guy in the woods? He doesn't even have a car. The letters, words, their sounds, and their definitions are not enough. But if you have the right furnishings in your mind, Frost's 108-word poem is packed with sensations, emotions, and a big concept. He has sent you a feeling and an idea from 99 years ago, and you have decoded it. But your version of it. Yours is different from Frost's and from mine, because we have seen different woods and known different horses. What about a painting of a farmer and his horse in a snowy wood? Still somewhat the same idea. The artist is using shared experiences and knowledge to pull feelings and sensations out of you, but there is a little less of you in it. The painter, even an impressionistic one, has had to make some decisions for you that Frost did not. Something else is lost too. The idea about obligations may still be there, but much fainter, much more subjective. The emotional response may be even stronger with a painting, but the concept of the traveler's sense of duty becomes weaker. What about with a photograph, though, or a video? Photography and videography can do the things that writing does with emotion and sense memory. A photo or a video can be taken and edited in such a way to draw out a particular response. A photographer can stage or script the subjects to convey a feeling far more potently than words alone can describe. But something is lost. Now it is this farmer and that wood. Where they were still a little abstract from the painter, here they are concrete. The horse isn't the roan you had in your mind, but a Dobbin gray. The trees are aspens instead of black walnuts. You are not decoding and constructing, you are absorbing. And the idea is obliterated. We can know with great accuracy about the physical setting, see the cold in the horse's breath, hear the wind and the harness bells, but only guess at the thoughts of the man stopping by the woods on a snowy evening. We now have a totally objective depiction, but a totally subjective idea. To say video and television are passive media means that they are doing most of the assembly for you. And often you do not need to bring anything but your attention. Yes, you might enjoy Bugs Bunny more in The Rabbit of Seville if you are familiar with Gioacchino Rossini's original work, or opera in general, as Warner Brothers could more safely assume in 1950 when they put it out. But you don't need to know a libretto from a leitmotif to know that it's funny when Bugs gives Elmer Fudd a scalp massage with his toes and then turns the hunter's bald dome into a fruit salad to the bouncy, antic music Rossini wrote nearly 200 years ago. Cultural literacy is the term coined by the educator E.D. Hirsch in the 1980s to talk about the erosion in literacy already evident then from the sharp decline in SAT verbal scores among middle-class white students. Even controlling for the concentrated disadvantages in some minority groups by focusing on white children of adequate means, real literacy was badly in decline 40 years ago. Today it's worse. In 2020, more than half of Americans between the ages of 16 and 74 read below the equivalent of a 6th grade level. Almost any 5th grader can enjoy Rossini for a rabbit, but not many can decode an abstract idea and apply it to concrete situations. Written language is unsurpassed for the broad transmission of ideas, concepts, and philosophies. The words remain fixed and can, like the New Testament or the United States Constitution, remain in practical use for hundreds or even thousands of years. Because readers are decoding the messages for themselves, the fixity of the words is reduced as an obstacle to individual understanding. Your idea of a more perfect union, your idea of the kingdom of God. But it won't work if people lack the real literacy to reveal the deeper coding in the words. You could not give the Bill of Rights or the letters of the Apostle Paul to a person who knew the language phonetically and the definitions of all the words, but who did not know about the ideas of the Enlightenment or the story of Jesus and expect them to understand the concepts. Video makes far fewer demands, but can never do the same work for a society. You can't take a picture of liberty. You can take a picture that evokes a feeling of freedom, but not of the nature of the idea itself. You can record a video of a person acting selflessly, but not of unconditional love. Recordings of visual images and sounds may not be able to transmit ideas with the depth and permanence of writing, but they do offer the promise of something else useful for a society: accuracy. The recorded image can be hard evidence of what happened, not what a writer described. When Matthew Brady took his camera to the first Battle of Bull Run and showed Americans the first objective images of war, including its dead, he pointed to the power of the new medium to tell dispassionate truths. He pointed to the news as we wish it could be, accurate in its record, undiminished by the biases of an observer, and delivered directly to the consumer. Like the name of the first great television news magazine, See It Now. The gap, though, will not go away. Images today can show far more than the human eye can see, but they will never be able to carry the depth of code needed to maintain a civilization of ideas. As we know, literacy requires a code book of a common culture and the ability to assemble abstract ideas in one's own mind. Video asks only that you keep your eyes on the screen. It will do almost everything else. You are a spectator, not a participant. A citizenry in which more than half of American adults aren't literate at a level adequate to life in a free society will not be free for long. We are losing the common points of reference that allow us to discuss the abstract ideas to which our nation was built to aspire: equality, natural rights, human dignity, liberty, and self-determination. The American creed requires written words and a common culture in which to understand them. The news business once provided those things, albeit imperfectly, but after a struggle of more than a century to combine the accuracy of the recorded image with the deeper understanding of the written word, we find both increasingly out of reach. In their place, we see subjective, politicized, emotionally manipulative coverage. We see that much of our news does not aim to make ideas understood, but to generate powerful feelings. Often, fear, anger, and resentment. Those feelings do not connect the consumer to the goals of the republic or the civic life around them. Instead, the feelings become self-sufficing, forming emotional feedback loops. Looking at the news at first eases the fear of the unknown, especially the anxiety about what the other side is doing. But that relief quickly dissipates as the consumer is told of yet more danger and yet more wicked acts of their enemies. These draw the consumer deeper in, gorging themselves on the news that affirms their negative thoughts or reinforces their feelings of superiority over members of the opposing group. There is a connection being made, but it is to the consumer's own identity group. Strangers who tend to feel, look, and act as they do, and who share a common enemy. And at the center of that group is the outlet itself, spinning the emotional tilt-a-whirl. April 14th, 1935 is still remembered as Black Sunday to some Americans who live on the Southern Plains. For 5 years, an oppressive drought had gripped the land where the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas meet the corners of Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico, a region of 100 million acres, 500 miles by 300 miles. By Palm Sunday of 1935, the hope for rain had turned to deep desperation. It was a killing kind of drought. Settlers had flooded the region after the Homestead Act of 1862. And then Congress passed 2 new programs for free farmland in 1904 and 1909 that drew huge numbers of inexperienced farmers into the area. That part of the country is not like the Great Plains to its northeast. The Southern Plains are rimmed by mountains, the Rockies to the west, and the Ozarks and the Wichitas to the east and south. When air from the Pacific is pushed over the Rockies, it cools down and expands, releasing the moisture it had absorbed over the ocean, and then blows dry across the flatland to the east. You can see the effects of the rain shadow on a topographic map in a line that falls from the eastern side of Montana and Wyoming before it slashes south, cutting Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas in half. On the west side of the line is not the deep black soil and steady rains of the Missouri and Mississippi river valleys, but a thin land with a semi-arid climate. The new arrival's timing was good, however. Not only was the rain unusually steady, but the outbreak of the First World War created massive demand for American wheat. Eager to get in on the bonanza and without proper understanding of the weather and soil, farmers plowed up millions of acres of grassland to put in wheat. Good times and rain persisted through the 1920s, so when depression and drought arrived together in 1930, the men and women of the region were unprepared for either. The next year brought not relief, but a new menace. All of that parched land, without the prairie grass to hold it down, started blowing up in dust storms. As the drought persisted, the storms got worse. The drought of 1934 is said by scientists studying evidence in tree rings to have been the worst in North America in 1,000 years. The dust that came with it was monstrous. Mothers committed suicide, driven mad by the air that choked their children. Families left behind all they had built for decades to escape the relentless, blasting grit. Caroline Henderson and her husband had been farming in the Oklahoma Panhandle for almost 30 years when the storms began. They eventually sent their children and what remained of their livestock away and hunkered down to try to save their farm. In the dust-covered desolation of our no-man's land here, wearing our shade hats, with handkerchiefs tied over our faces and Vaseline in our nostrils, we have been trying to rescue our home from the wind-blown dust, which penetrates wherever air can go, she wrote to a friend back in Maryland. It is almost a hopeless task, for there is rarely a day when at some time the dust clouds do not roll over. Visibility approaches zero, and everything is covered again with a silt-like deposit, which may vary in depth from a film to actual ripples on the kitchen floor. By the spring of 1935, surviving these storms and enduring the drought was the sole focus of life. Even so, what happened on that Palm Sunday was beyond their imaginings. An unusual blast of cold air came ripping down from Canada. This was not the warm, gusty wind of typical dust storms, but a norther with high, sustained winds. Residents felt the temperature drop 40 degrees before the clouds of dirt came upon them. Churning black walls rising 8,000 feet in the air and hundreds of feet wide produced so much static electricity that they made their own thunder and lightning. Severe dust storm hit at 4:20 p.m., turning afternoon brightness immediately into midnight darkness and absolutely zero visibility, recorded Ralph H. Gray, an observer for the National Weather Service in Kenton, Oklahoma. It was totally dark and impossible to see without searchlight for at least 15 minutes. The storm came from the north and northeast and traveled at a very great speed. That was the storm that overtook Associated Press reporter Robert Geiger and photographer Harry Eisenhard just north of Boise City, 35 miles away. Geiger recalled racing in front of the storm at 60 miles per hour before it finally overtook their car. It took them 2 hours to cover the remaining 6 miles, driving with the door open so that they could see the edge of the highway. As word spread of Black Sunday's devastation, Geiger's account ricocheted across the country, including this line. 3 little words, achingly familiar on a Western farmer's tongue, rule life in the Dust Bowl of the continent, if it rains.
And that was first part of Chapter 1, Out of Ideas, from Broken News, Why the Media Rage Machine Divides America, and How to Fight Back by Chris Steyerwalt. Back in a minute. Thank you. The following is one of my voiceover demos. If you're a voiceover artist and you would like to advertise one of your demos on my podcast, please send an MP3 to thedrill12, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thedrill12 at gmail.com. Back in a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by Chocolate Candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off Chocolate Candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.